Hey, what's going on, guys? The Horror Man back, counting down my top 25 horror anthology films. I originally intended this to be another top 20 video, but I just love horror anthologies. And while I was going through my collection, I realized there was a lot I'd be leaving out. So this will be my top 25 favorite horror anthology films. And because of that, I won't be spending too much time talking about each of the films. But if you do see something that spikes your curiosity, please feel free to ask me questions about it in the comments. As always, I'll be starting with my least favorite and working my way to my favorite horror anthology film. So I just finished filming the video and I realized that I forgot to include this film, Body Bags. And I'm gutted because I love this horror anthology and I really wish that I had included it in my ranking, but I didn't. So here it is as a bonus. Awesome movie and I highly recommend it. And now on with the countdown. Coming in at number 25 is The Burning Moon. Now this is a German shot-on-video horror anthology film with amazing gore, and for that reason alone, I had to include it in my countdown. Next up is Chillers. Now, I've always had a good time with this one. It's definitely a fun film, but it's trauma. So how high could I really rank this on my list? This one focuses around a group of 5 strangers swapping ghost stories while they're stranded at a bus depot, and it's in at number 24. Coming in at number 23 is 3 Extremes. Now this is pretty much what you'd expect from an Asian horror anthology film. 3 pretty extreme stories. And what else would you expect with a title like that? At number 22 is From Beyond the Grave. We move from Asia to England for this one, as a British film featuring 5 stories, all revolving around objects in an antique store. This one always sort of reminded me of Friday the 13th, the TV series, and it's pretty obvious why. Coming in at number 21 is Grim Prairie Tales. Now, I already talked about this one in one of my rare movies not on DVD or Blu-ray videos, so if you want to know more about this film, check that out. It stars James Earl Jones and Brad Dourif, and it's a good mix of Western and horror anthology. At number 20 is The ABCs of Death. Now, this is definitely an interesting one. Basically, 26 short stories in this horror anthology, each story based on a letter of the alphabet. So the first story is some sort of death that begins with the letter A. The next one is a death that begins with the letter B, and then C, and so on. You get it. I'm sure most of you have seen this one. If you haven't, it's definitely worth checking out. You know, it's one of those movies so you don't necessarily need to watch in one sitting. You can kind of watch it as, you know, a collection of short films. And I enjoy a lot of the gruesome deaths in this one, so it's definitely creative, and it's number 20 in my top 25 favorite horror anthology films. At number 19 is Chillerama. Now this movie is basically an homage to other classic horror anthology films, and it's also an homage to classic B movies, so it's not really meant to be taken all that seriously. It's just fun, there's great monsters, silly creature effects, and it's also written and directed by Adam Green, so that's always a plus. Coming in at number 18 is Trilogy of Terror. Now this of course stars Karen Black, and is most famously known for its third story, Amelia, about the evil doll. This here is the Anchor Bay DVD release, which you don't see too much, so I thought I would include it here. Coming in at number 17 is Tales from the Hood. Now for a while, this DVD was very rare and very expensive. But then of course, Scream Factory released it as a collector's edition, and the popularity of the film definitely spiked, and more people got to see it. So I don't really need to explain what it's about. It definitely has a Tales from the Crypt vibe, and I've always enjoyed it. In at number 16 is a movie that nobody ever talks about, Terror Tract. This one stars John Ritter as a realtor named Bob Carter, and the horror anthology stories in this one come from recounts of what happened to the previous owners of the house that Bob is trying to sell, and he leaves out none of the gory details. Coming in at number 15 is The Monster Club. Now I talked about this one recently in a Random Rarities video. It stars Vincent Price, John Carradine, Donald Pleasance, and Britt Eklund. With a cast like that, how can you go wrong? This one also has a great atmosphere, a great setting, and great horror anthology stories. Coming in at number 14 is The Offspring. Now, I recently showed this tape in a Blu-ray, DVD, and VHS update, and I mentioned that I'd be speaking about it a little more in a future video. Well, here it is. If you don't know what The Offspring is, it's basically the alternate title of From a Whisper to a Scream. I don't really know why they changed the title from, when they had the VHS to the DVD. I don't know. I guess I should probably look that up. A quick Google search will probably tell me, but I just haven't done that yet. This one also stars Vincent Price, who plays the town librarian and tells the 4 stories featured in this horror anthology. It's an awesome film, and I've always specifically enjoyed the carnival scene because I just love carnival settings and horror films. At number 13 is another popular one, Twilight Zone, the movie. Now, this one definitely needs a Scream Factory Blu-ray, and I feel it might be coming. It has 3 great short stories in this one, and if you like Twilight Zone, the TV series, you're sure to like the movie. At number 12 is Tales from the Dark Side, the movie. Again, if you like the TV show, I'm sure you'll like the film as well. Got a little Stephen King in here, you got Steve Buscemi, who's just an awesome actor. How can you go wrong? And we got more Stephen King in my number 11 pick, Cat's Eye. Now, I actually gave this one a rewatch yesterday. Hadn't seen it in a while. My wife watched it for the first time. She loves cats, so this was a no-brainer. But I do love this one. I've always enjoyed this one. I read the 2 stories that are actually Stephen King stories from this movie. I've read both of them before. And then he, of course, wrote the 3rd story specifically for the screenplay. Interestingly, since the 3rd story in this one is probably the most popular. But really love this one. I like the creature effects on the troll. I thought it looked really good, especially for, a movie from 1985. It was a really good effect. It wasn't too fake looking at all, even with the whole size difference and, the troll running around. It looked great. I love Quitters, Inc. It's one of my favorite short stories by Stephen King, and it's the first, story in this horror anthology. And then the 2nd story as well is just fantastic. It really gives me anxiety, I'm standing on that 5-inch ledge. So, yeah, if you haven't seen Cat's Eye, definitely check this one out. I highly recommend this one. We're into the top 10 now, and at number 10 is Campfire Tales. Now, this is another DVD that will probably be making an appearance in one of my random rarities videos at some point, because it's a very rare DVD, and it's very expensive. Now, this movie actually predates urban legend, and is very similar. It has a great cast, and the characters sit around a campfire telling urban legends, and we get to see each of them play out. It's a fun movie, and is number 10 in my top 25 favorite horror anthology films. Coming in at number 9 is Nightmares. Now, I've always loved this anthology. It stars Christina Rains from The Sentinel, Emilio Estevez, and Lance Henriksen, among others. One of the stories features a giant rat, which is just so cheesy and so much fun. I've always loved the Emilio Estevez story, where he plays the video game expert, if you will, and takes on a challenge much bigger than he expected. And I also especially love the Christina Rains story, where she's just going out for a pack of cigarettes when there happens to be a madman on the loose. So yeah, just a fun anthology all around. There's also a 4th story in there that is okay as well, and I really enjoy this one. Coming in at number 8 is another anthology that I've always loved, After Midnight. This one has a great variety of stories in it, including a haunted house, ravenous dogs, and even a slasher. It also has a good wraparound story. It has everything you could want in a horror anthology film. At number 7, The Willies. Now, this is a movie that, for a long time, never really got talked about all that much. But I'm happy to say that it seems to have found its fan base now, and it gets a lot of love. And it's definitely deserved because this movie is awesome. I remember watching this one a lot when I was younger, and for some reason, the lady eating the fried rat always stuck out to me, and I don't know why. But this one also has, 2 shorter stories, and I've actually always preferred the Gordy Belcher story. I know a lot of people actually like the first story more with the monster in the bathroom, but for some reason, the Gordy Belcher story just stuck out to me as well. It has a very creepy ending, and I just love this movie all around. So, The Willies, number 7. Coming in at number 6 is Vault of Horror. Now, you guys know I love EC Comics, and Vault of Horror, as well as Tales from the Crypt, were made using stories from EC Comics. Much like the Tales from the Crypt TV show, the stories to create the episodes were taken from the comics, and the stories to create the horror anthologies were also taken from the comics. With Vault of Horror, there are a couple that probably could have been done a bit better, but it's solid overall. However, I do enjoy Tales from the Crypt more, which is why Vault of Horror is number 6 and Tales from the Crypt is number 5. Tales from the Crypt, all 5 stories are just awesome. The whole movie was done right. I love the wraparound in that one. I specifically love, of course, in All Through the House, which is a classic Tales from the Crypt episode as well. The Tales from the Crypt episode pretty much remade the segment from the movie. And, there was a time when I actually preferred the movie segment to the Tales from the Crypt episode. I go back and forth with that. They both have their merits. I do love how the ending of the segment ends in the movie as opposed to the ending of the episode. But again, I go back and forth with that as well, so who knows. Either way, Vault of Horror number 6, Tales from the Crypt number 5, and my top 25 favorite horror anthology films. Coming in at number 4 is a movie that a lot of people probably wouldn't even consider to be a horror anthology film. But I do. Waxwork. I mean, how is it not a horror anthology? When you really think about it, it's a group of people that go to a waxwork and they get sucked into individual stories. So it all comes together, yes, it's all pretty much one movie, but so are a lot of other horror anthology films. So I'm going to include it here. And I love this film. It's so much fun. It's definitely 80s. You have Zach Galligan. You have pretty much everything you could want in a horror film. You have, a werewolf. You have a vampire. You have Frankenstein's monster. You have a mummy. A great wraparound story. Creepy stuff. I love it. Waxwork, number 4 in my top 25. At number 3, Creepshow. Who doesn't like Creepshow? This movie is so much fun. This is actually one of those films that I probably watch at least once a year, because I'm just always in the mood for it. It runs a little long, it's about 2 hours long, but, they have extended segments in this one. A lot of other horror anthology films have segments that are a little too short. This one may have some segments that maybe are a little too long, such as The Crate. That one seems to go on for quite a while, a lot longer than the others, but you know what? I still enjoy it. A lot of people love the Father's Day segment, with the cake, of course, and it's classic. It really is, but all 5 segments are. Love this film, and it's number 3. So while Creepshow is my number 3 pick, my number 2 pick is Creepshow 2. I actually prefer the sequel to the original. All 3 stories are fantastic, and if they had included Pinfall, the 4th story that didn't end up being filmed, I'm sure it would have been even better. I actually have the screenplay of Pinfall, and it would have been so awesome, but, it is what it is. It's a shame that it wasn't filmed. But all 3 stories that did make it in, you have Old Chief Woodenhead, fantastic. The Raft, which is probably my favorite out of the 3. Then you have The Hitchhiker. Thanks for the ride, lady. Thanks for the ride. Creepshow 2, my number 2 pick in my top 25 favorite horror anthology films. If you've been subscribed to my channel for a long time, then my number 1 pick will come as no surprise to you. Trick or Treat. It's my absolute favorite horror anthology film. It has everything. First of all, it has the greatest Halloween atmosphere, Halloween setting in any other Halloween-themed movie. And that includes John Carpenter's Halloween. You have vampires, werewolves, zombies, ghosts, even a slasher element in this one. It has everything. It's the perfect horror anthology. It's the perfect Halloween film. It's my number 1 favorite horror anthology film of all time. So there it is, guys, my top 25 favorite horror anthology films. Comment below, let me know what you think about these movies, and let me know what your favorite horror anthology films are. As always, if you feel like joining in on the fun, post a video response counting them down. I'll be back soon with some more videos. Thanks for watching. I appreciate it.